can shovel it far enough that someone on the outside can shovel it out.
Wow.
And then you have to rotate every 15 minutes to avoid getting hypothermia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And there's no
intense.
safeties, to just a man looking out for you.
It was just two people kind of paired up. So if like one person collapses and you got to call somebody, but it'd be really hard to drag somebody out. I have to say that it does not seem safe because if the tunnel gets blocked, trying to unblock that tunnel would be very difficult in a short period of time. So, but it was the highest paying job at the employment office. So I was like, okay, the other jobs were like, I don't know, $8 an hour, and this one was $18 an hour.
You had to buy your clothes, and they're all gone.
Well, they did give you a hazmat suit. So,
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
How long did you do that job for?
Like 4 days.
Oh, okay.
No, but then it was done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You said it was like a short-term thing, cleaning grain bins, cleaning the
boilers.
the boiler rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So what was next? We were in boiler rooms and then...
Yeah, so it's basically... I mean, literally it was like a lumberjack who's chainsawing logs and just doing lumber stuff, basically, for a few months there. And then applied for college and went to Queen's University in Kingston, and was there for a couple of years, and then somebody suggested I should apply to UPenn, and I didn't think I'd be able to go because I paid for my own way through university, which is actually not that hard in Canada because the tuition
System.
Yeah, the tuition's highly subsidized in Canada. So with basically some, if you sort of work during the summer and semester and take out some loans and get some scholarships, you can pretty much go to any college in Canada, I think. But I met someone who was at UPenn and they said you should at least apply, and I applied, and they actually gave me like quite a big scholarship. So that allowed me to go there. And so I did the physics and economics there, and then that's what led to the road trip to Stanford with Robin Wren, and then that was during that summer that I was like, okay, if I can either spend several years kind of doing a PhD, and not that I care about the PhD actually, but I just needed a lab. But I could either spend a bunch of years working in a lab, and maybe the technology would pan out, or maybe it wouldn't. But the internet was definitely about to go supernova in '95. So I was like, okay, look, I can always come back to working on electric cars, basically, and which I did. But the internet is not going to wait. So then I put Stanford on deferment and started Zip2, which was really just, we started off with maps and directions, Yellow Pages, White Pages, that kind of thing. And it was, best of my knowledge, the first maps and directions on the internet. So and there's still some like patents I have. I don't have many more, but I think they've obviously lapsed at this point. But for maps and directions and Yellow Pages and advertising and stuff. And I wrote the whole initial code base. I wrote personally because there wasn't any Rails. It was just me. So, and I only had a few $1,000s. And then my brother joined, and he brought like $5,000, which was a lot. Yeah, at least for the first few months, there was literally only one computer. So the website, when the website wasn't working, it was because I was compiling code. and even to get an internet connection was pretty hard. But there was an internet service provider on the floor below us. And we more or less squatted in this office. The landlord was like out of the country or something, and nobody was using it. So
you lived in there?
Yeah.
I think I read that in May's book you showered at the YMCA then, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's smart though. I mean, you were thrifty. You did what you had to do.
We just like had no money, so what are you gonna do? You know?
What did people think about Zip2 generally? Was it like seen as a crazy idea, or like, did people even understand the internet back then?
Most people did not understand the internet. Most people didn't know. Even on Sand Hill Road, like we tried pitching people to invest in an internet company. Most of the VCs we pitched to had never used the internet.
Do you remember some of the VC firms you went to on Sand Hill?
I remember most of the time we wouldn't take a meeting, and if they did take the meeting, they were pretty bored and not said like who's made money in the internet? No, we're like no one. Okay, but the sea change occurred when Netscape went public.
Yeah.
So, but the first thing I tried to do was not to start a company. I tried to get a job at Netscape, but they didn't reply to me.
Oh no.
Oh man.
So I tried hanging out in the lobby at Netscape. I don't know who to talk to. I was really too shy to talk to anyone. I don't know. So it's like, okay, I can't get a job at the only internet company that that does internet software. So then I'll try writing software. So that's kind of what happened there. Yeah, and then like I said, my brother came down and joined. This is like late '95, and then in January '95, I think it was there was a lot more interest in the internet stuff following the Netscape IPO, and the software was more impressive, I guess. So then more David Dow invested. So they're VC firm on Sand Hill Road, and they invested, I think it was like $3 million for effectively 60% of the company.
Wow.
Which we thought was crazy. They're like, well, they're going to give us the money for nothing? They must be mad. Yeah, so this seemed like crazy that they would give so much money for a company that consisted at the time of about 5 people. Like literally, I think 5 people at the time. So, but anyway, it worked out well for them in the end. So we hired a lot more people. We built out the service, and then we also ended up writing a bunch of software to bring the newspapers online. So Knight Ridder, New York Times Company, Hearst, all became investors and customers. And at one point, Zip2 was responsible for a significant section of the New York Times Company website. Yeah, so I got to know the media industry pretty well, and but over what really happened with Zip2 is it effectively got too much. There was too much control by the existing media companies, so they had too many board seats and too much voting control, and that they kept trying to push the company down directions that made no sense. So Zip2 actually had really good software. I'd say software that's comparable, in some ways more advanced than, say, a Yahoo or Excite at the time, but it was just not being used properly, and it was all being forced through media companies who would then not use it. So it's like, it's like, okay, we've got the best technology, but it's not being deployed properly. So, but fortunately, Compaq came along, and they Compaq had acquired Digital Equipment, and Digital Equipment had owned AltaVista, which at the time was probably the best search engine. So they thought their idea was they will combine AltaVista with a bunch of other internet companies and try to create a competitor to Yahoo or Excite. That was Excite used to be a big thing, amazingly, and Yahoo used to be a big thing.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Now it's like owned by Verizon or something.
Yeah.
Then there was AOL.
AOL back then.
Yahoo's a crazy story. They, they failed to acquire Google twice. Microsoft offered them like $40 billion or something, and they turned it down.
And then Alibaba saved them out of nowhere.
The Alibaba stake was worth more than the whole company at one point.
By a huge amount.
Right.
It was basically a proxy for Alibaba shares trading.
Yeah, no, exactly. But at one point, at that time, like if you go back to, say, 98, 99, Yahoo seemed like an unstoppable juggernaut.
Yeah.
Like literally, like this company will, is a behemoth. Nobody could possibly defeat them. But anyway, and where's Compaq today? Yeah. So, but that was their idea, which is at least if executed well, could have made sense.
Kimball!
Yeah, what are you guys doing?
We're recording a podcast.
Yeah, how do you want me to join?
Pull up a chair. So what do you remember about Zip2?
Yeah, we remember.
Yeah, so but then the internet came along, became this huge thing. I mean, it was always there, but it became a big deal. And then Elon was working in Silicon Valley, and as I remember it, Elon overheard a meeting where some of the Yellow Pages companies were thinking of doing sort of online Yellow Pages. And
no, why would I have been in a meeting?
I don't know. This is a long time ago. Anyway, you called me up and you said you think you can do a better job. So we think we can do a better job.
Maybe you made that up to try and get Kimball interested.
How would I be in a meeting with Yellow Pages company?
I have no idea. That's what I remember.
No.
But what's your version of that?
Sleepless nights.
I don't even know any Yellow Pages.
I agree with you. I agree with you now. But so it was like I think April of 1995. We started working on it, and the I guess the idea was fairly simple: to take mapping and apply it to the internet. And there were a few other companies trying to do it, but no one with the very cool technology of sort of what was called vector-based mapping, which is what we all use today, where the map is actually alive, not just a picture.
That was very ahead of its time.
I think we were the first. I know there were other people putting maps on the internet, but I think we were the first to put vector-based mapping, which is what the kind of technology you use today on the internet, and door-to-door directions. So it was cool. I remember my brother and I pressing go on his server at our office, and it took about 60 seconds for the first door-to-door directions to come up on the screen. And even 60 seconds was amazing.
Yeah.
You're like, this is incredible. Door-to-door directions to anywhere. This is just amazing. And
definitely seemed amazing at the time.
Definitely seemed amazing at the time.
Yeah, it's like
now it's like so absolutely
wherever.
normal, but this was like an impossible thing.
So cool.
It was so cool. And using Java, Elon had coded a interactive map, which again, all super normal stuff today, but the ability to just draw a square and zoom in or zoom out, that was just unheard of technology.
Draw a square.
Yeah, you remember that? It was like a little red square on the Java map.
On a browser, that was unusual.
Yeah.
Yes. You just
Well, you cheated if you're using Java applets.
Yeah, but this is when Java sucked and it was barely.
Yeah, this was like probably the most.
It was 95.
I think we even got some sort of recognition because it was the most advanced Java application on Java at the time, because it was so ridiculously hard. It was a really crappy technology at the time, but this was done on it.
The thing is, that if you downloaded the Java app, we could transmit the vector data, not just a bitmap. And this is when everyone was on a modem.
Right.
So if somebody's on 28 kilobits modem, or trying to download a map image would take forever. Whereas if you had downloading the vector data that locally rendered using the Java applet was relatively speaking super fast. That's what made it cool.
Smart.
Yeah.
I mean, even like vector maps even Google Maps was using like raster maps a few years ago. Like, it seems like very ahead of its time.
Well, we were the
But
first. I believe the two of us were the first humans to see maps and door-to-door directions on the internet, which I think is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
How Garmin came out? When did Garmin first launch?
Well, they weren't internet-based, right? So you could. Actually, I don't think Garmin was even a player at this point. It was Navtech was the only place that we were. That's where we got the data from.
Yeah.
And they were building it for Hertz Neverlost, which came out a few years later. You know those things that no one uses in the GPS systems. Really, really bad technology, but the actual mapping data was amazing. And so we took that and applied it to the internet. We were 22 and 23 at the time. It had cost them $300 million to build this data, and they gave it to us for free with a simple contract saying, if you ever make any money on this, you got to come
share it
us.
with them. Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's how we got it.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so it's amazing what happens if you ask. Ask nicely. And there's also part of it was these guys had been working so hard on the tech, and no one had ever seen what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because it was not on the internet and it was not being used for Hertz, and so it was just they were excited that someone would use the data and people could see what they'd been working on.
So how did you guys get the engineering chops to pull this off? Because it sounds like you were so young, you didn't really have any help, and then you built this like cutting edge piece of technology. Did you teach yourselves, or
from I don't know what age, but you published your first
the like Blast Star game, right?
Yeah, when he was 12.
Did you write any other cool stuff back then?
Yeah, I wrote a bunch of games.
Yeah.
And then like occasionally like software for people that ask for software. You know.
You also work for a video game company.
Yeah. Finally, it was called.
Rocket Science.
Yeah.
That's funny.
By the way, we took a SpaceX tour yesterday. It was insane.
Thank you for that. That was amazing. Yeah, it was so good.
It's like Batman's lair in there. That's right. It's really cool.
It really is amazing.
But it gives you perspective on what Tesla's doing because the technology is so advanced, and there's interchange of information there. Like I know they used the Inconel fuse, right? It was from SpaceX when they couldn't get the power output, right? It kept burning up the fuse in the performance models. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see the SpaceX tech being applied to Tesla. I think there's one joint employee between SpaceX and Tesla, and it's the materials. Is it the materials engineer?
What about Elon?
In addition to Elon, because there's just not that many humans on the planet that know how to do this stuff.
No. Well, it sounded like back in the old days, was it just Elon doing the coding, or?
I mean, I did a little for like HTML front end, but it wasn't mine.
Not recently, but no, we had no money, so we couldn't employ him anymore. So I just wrote all the software.
And you worked through the night, right? You just never. According to May's book, you just never slept. I don't know.
I mean, we lived in a little office. I think this address was 470 Sherman Way in Palo Alto. It was probably.
It was about the size of this room here.
Yeah, it was probably like 15 feet wide by 30 feet long with a little closet in the back. And we would we couldn't afford a place to sleep or like a house, home or apartment. So we would sleep in it, and it had a couch that